Well, I'll shoot just a little bit of an update on this Subaru project. I have named her Rubi da Subi. And some of you may recall I picked this little car up on Craigslist. It's a $50 car and a $100 motor. Had a bonehead gasket. I got a different motor from my nephew. He had a good running little 1.8 and that he had salvaged out of a rig that he sent to the junkyard, and due to some other problems, brakes and steering and whatnot. But at any rate, he came up yesterday, my nephew, and helped me kind of get the bugs out of this thing. This thing has got 1,379 vacuum hoses on it. I mean, it is like a can of worms in here with all these vacuum lines. So it's just kind of easier with two people. And I was inside and trying to get her started, and he was looking for leaks, and finally found a vacuum leak and plugged her off, and lo and behold, she fired right up, and we got her running pretty good and sounds real good. And it smoked pretty bad to begin with, but I knew that was just due to rolling this motor around on the floor and got some oil up in the heads and all this and that. But we took her down the road, and it didn't want to come back real well. It didn't have any power, and we finally just struggled to get it to the house. Didn't have much throttle, and I was inside under the dash checking the linkage to the cable and kind of seeing what was going on there and looking at the linkage. And so I was out here checking the carburetor and the linkage on this end, and discovered that the secondary was not opening on this carburetor. It's a great big thing, ain't it? And well, actually it's so small you need a secondary. But we got some knocker loose sprayed on there and kept tapping and working and back and forth, and pretty soon that thing, butterfly, worked its shaft worked itself loose there, and we put her back together and drove her down the road, and away she went, lickety split. Shifted out into all three gears. It's an automatic with power steering, and don't see too many of these old Subis with all this power on it. Usually they're a little 4-speed or a 5-speed with manual steering, but this one has power windows and power steering, and everything works. So after we got this secondary opening on that carb, she runs out real good, shifts out nice and shifts back down just the way it's supposed to. And of course, once I got it out on the road, I was able to kind of look into some other things and see what else it needed. And one of the things it needed is a CV joint. And it's you know, it's just easier and cheaper nowadays to just replace that whole axle assembly. And right here it is, this little box. That's what she looks like. 60 bucks and you're in business. So I can put it in myself. And I don't know if anybody wants to know or cares how this works, but what you had on here was a big castle nut holding that hub on. And I got myself a bar, that particular bar right there, in amongst the lug bolts on this thing, and mounted down on the floor so I could get some pressure on it. And then I took my little tiny 1-inch drive ratchet, what I use for working on my wristwatch, and I put that on there, and then I got up on it, and it came loose pretty easy. And then I had to get my little cheap old Harbor Freight wheel puller out, which did a fantastic job of pulling that hub. And now what I'm about to do is pull that axle assembly out of there, and if anybody cares, I'll just show you how that's done. And what happens here is so typical on these things. It's this boot out here on this end. It's full of grease when you get these things, and you know they'll crack, and as soon as they crack and get opened up, well, there's some of that grease you can see there. But what happens is they crack and get opened up, and then you start to get water and dirt in there, and pretty soon she starts going snap, crackle, pop when you go around a corner. And the way that's done is get some tools out of the way so I can roll my little cart around here. But there is right in here on this axle, on the other end, is a hole, and in that hole, if you can see that, yeah, is a roll pin. So you drive that roll pin out, and then that end slides off that spline shaft, and then come out here on this end and drop this control arm down, and then you can pull that out and get that axle out of there. Pop the new one in, stick the roll pin in, bolt and roll back up. And while I'm at it, I'll put some new brake pads in her, and then go to the other side and repeat. But anyway, that's what I'm into, kind of in the middle of the Rubi Subi project here. I'll shoot another video when I get her all put back together and get her running down the road. Runs out pretty good. See you later.